I also have tea.
Drinking, I think I'm drinking bone broth actually.
Oh, well, welcome to Nerds and Friends with the weirdest intro of all time as we both sip on our tea and bone broth.
Yeah, I found these. I don't even know how old this bone broth is.
Oh, that's dicey.
I fa- I found it in my cabinet, and I'm sure I had it at some point, but I was feeling kind of brothy, so I
Hey,
grabbed it.
once in a while you feel brothy.
It's good though, Josh.
Oh my God.
Episode episode 6. So let's just start off the top, just because I think my brother told me that he didn't see spoiler alert in our last podcast in the title,
Oh
and
no.
he started watching it, and he's like, dude, I haven't caught up. So spoiler alert,
Spoiler alert.
if you're not caught up on Star Wars, we are going to review the last episode, Obi-Wan Kenobi, all 6 episodes, but really the very last episode. So
Yes.
Josh, what were your thoughts?
Amazement, catharsis, emotions. Just it was epic. I loved it. It was fantastic. It was heartfelt. It was well done. It was incredible. I loved it. I loved it.
It was really good. It was really good. But let's just cut right to it. I think that we were both incorrect with the final duel scene. What we thought we would get out of that duel scene.
Yeah, it was very unexpected in a way where it was like, oh, that was better than what I had thought I wanted. So I was very happy with it.
I was extremely happy with it. I didn't think that it almost, in my opinion, it almost certainly rules out a season 2 with a Obi-Wan Kenobi and Vader. Like, I don't think they're going to cross paths ever again. I think that that's resolved.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that was a really poignant note for them to like end their relationship on up until they return in episode 4 of A New Hope when they on the Death Star meet for the final time. I thought that was a really good setup, and just it gave Obi-Wan Kenobi catharsis to be able to be like, my friend is truly gone. I'm no longer blaming myself. He kind of worked through his guilt, and it was just that he now sees Darth Vader as Darth Vader, not as Anakin. And I was like, wow, that was really, really cool.
Yeah. So the duel scene, Vader had his moment. He basically buried Obi-Wan alive.
Yes.
Obi-Wan, through the hope and inspiration of Leia and a little bit of Luke, decides to gain back the full light side of what he has in him, and he basically blows out of this buried alive grave, and then he proceeds to whoop Vader's ass in more way than one, and
Yes.
ultimately he could have killed him if he wanted to. Vader was completely compromised.
Yeah.
His helmet was split open. But what I thought was incredible is, with the helmet split open, how they, because up until then, deep down, everybody knows that Anakin and Vader are the same.
Yeah.
But to show that, like, side by side of like, here's Anakin, here's Vader.
Yeah.
And to show the difference in the voice, like having the dysfunctional voice modulation, where you really get to see, like, this is who this person has become. But it was really eerie the way that he says, you didn't kill Anakin, I killed Anakin, or whatever the line was.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, you didn't. I just watched it on TikTok a minute ago because someone uploaded it, and it was yeah, Anakin was not your failure. I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin, I did, was the exact line, and I was like, oh, like, that's amazing.
Which that it's a little bit of a confusing thought, because it basically means that 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 Vader Anakin cerebellum is basically split right down the mid. I mean, it's almost like a personality disorder in a way.
Well, it really is. He has disassociated and condemned and walked away from all the values he had as a Jedi growing up. And now he is Darth Vader, where he is giving in to all the things that the Jedi were like, you need to rein in, buddy, like your aggression, your passion, all that, and your knowledge for your seeking of power. All of that was what the Jedi were trying to rein in, and now he's embraced that in a really toxic way and become Darth Vader in his fullness. So I thought it was very poignant, and it lets Obi-Wan let go, and it explains the way that he talks about Darth Vader in the future movies, which are the first movies in the past, about how he says, he's more machine than man. He's, your Darth Vader killed, that's why when he talks to Luke, he says, Darth Vader killed your father, Anakin Skywalker. And it's like, now with this, it just kind of builds that up. And it's like, oh, I see,
It's interesting because in a very warped sense of Lao Tzu philosophy, in a way, Vader's denial of self might even be more Jedi-esque than the ego of the Jedis, because he no longer even sees himself as himself. He's completely, I guess that there's a different ego there in control. It's not like there's ego abandonment, but
I mean, we got to remember in episode 2, he just like murked, a family on that planet for no reason, and it's like, oh, holy shit, like he's gone to the dark side completely, where it's all about power and domination and stuff like that.
So when he creeps over to the dark side, because now he's basically full dark side. He's in this moment, it's almost like an outright denial that Anakin's there at all. You see Anakin, you see a shred, like you see Anakin in that split helmet, you see the suffering. It's apparent that the breathing is labored and all that other stuff, but throughout all that, there is that Ben Solo Kylo Ren denial when Ben Solo is killing Harrison Ford. Like you see it all throughout Star Wars, this denial of like the good part. But in that moment, all that I really see is Vader there as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting philosophical discussion to have about Star Wars, of what does someone have to do to become irredeemable, and also what does redemption look like, are kind of, I think, the interesting questions that Star Wars poses, because as we've seen, Darth Vader's done all these horrible things, but in the very end of the movie, Luke and Leia insist that he still has good in him, and ultimately he helps defeat the Emperor and sacrifices himself to save Luke. But it makes you think about, okay, he's done all this horrible stuff, like what does redemption really look like?
It's a long path to redemption for him.
Yes. Well, I love the memes where it's just like he, where they say Anakin, kills one bad guy and ends up in Jedi heaven, and all the younglings that he murdered are just like, really? It's just like, yeah, no, that's a valid criticism.
So we talked about the duel. The duel was epic. Just the way that they were just manipulating all of the matter there on the planet. Yes. I thought that they might outright just destroy the whole planet in the process.
Yeah.
So all of that being said, so the other thing that we talked about that I think you were actually correct with, and I was incorrect, was what would the cameo be?
And it was Qui-Gon and the Emperor. We were both right.
Well, no, because I thought it would be, because we had said some different things. You thought, okay, well, what if it's Ahsoka?
True.
I had thought like, okay, well, what about Yoda? What about Mace Windu?
True.
We got the Emperor. We got Qui-Gon.
That was awesome with Qui-Gon. I was like, yes.
So explain to me your thoughts on the Qui-Gon ghost sequence there at the end.
I thought we'd been waiting for that. I mean, because it was kind of implied at the end of episode 3, the movies, that he would be able to communicate with Qui-Gon. So in the show, when it was revealed that, okay, in the last 10 years, he hasn't communicated with Qui-Gon, I was like, I assume they're going to have him at some point. And I remember reading an article recently where Liam Neeson was like, I'd love to come back as Qui-Gon Jinn. And I just got the vibe. I was like, he's back already. This is just publicity. Like, so, yeah, I thought it was fitting. I thought it was cool. And it's comforting to know that those two are together again, even though, as we discussed last time, Qui-Gon Jinn was not a perfect Jedi and he was not a perfect master, but
it's interesting because Qui-Gon, once again, he offers no help. during he basically creates Vader, and then we wait 6 episodes. He offers no help. We get a little quip like, what have you been waiting for? And there was really no counsel. So is there a takeaway there? Like, is that kind of Qui-Gon stepping aside saying, hey, this is you becoming the master now because you didn't need my help? Me not coming in was more of a teaching than me coming in.
That's an interesting read of it. I like that, where it's like he's letting Obi-Wan Kenobi, because he kind of rushed in the prequel movies. He kind of rushed Obi-Wan Kenobi from going from Padawan to Jedi Knight in order to train Anakin. So I like that, where it's kind of a foil of, okay, now that he's in the Force afterlife, where he's kind of like, I'm letting you do things your way and giving you the peace and the movement to do it that way. So I like that. I like that read. I like that interpretation of it very much.
Or it could just be that they didn't want to have to pay Liam Neeson a ton of money, and so they only had him for about 35 seconds of screen time.
We don't talk about that. No, I'm just kidding.
But I guess, okay, so here's the follow-up question. In this, all right, so with the Vader series that is fabled,
yes,
right? Like this storied Vader series, like people have put out these things that Hayden Christensen wants to do a Vader series. I don't know if that's true or not, but if there is a Vader series or a subsequent Obi-Wan series, where do both of these pick up, or do you feel like one of these isn't going to happen and one might happen?
I would be very surprised if they had more Obi-Wan Kenobi centric stuff, because I feel like they did a really good job in just 6 episodes, which surprised me, of bringing the character back, getting all that catharsis, having a throwback scene to the Clone Wars era with him and Anakin, and then bringing it all to a close and really just like setting up episode 4. So I would be very surprised if they brought him back. There's a lot more stories with Vader they could explore. And I heard a rumor, or I read it somewhere, that there might be a Reva-centric series. And then after seeing that ending, I was like, they could totally do that, because Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of set her free to go on her own path, And so I'm curious where that could go, Because I thought she was a great character and a really good foil to Obi-Wan, where she's let revenge really dictate her life choices, as opposed to kind of where Obi-Wan was more exile and withdraw. She was more aggression and I'm going to get my revenge. I don't care who I hurt on the way there. So I thought they were a good foil to each other. So to see her come 360 that way, I really enjoyed that,
It'll be interesting to see if they do more with her.
I'd like it. I thought Moses Ingram was brilliant as the role, so I'd love to see more of her.
But so do you keep her within that Darth Vader realm for a little bit? Do you, or is that resolved, or is she just going off on her own thing?
I would hope that she doesn't continue to seek vengeance against Darth Vader, because that would kind of undercut the arc she had in this show.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so that would be my thoughts on it. I'd like to see her do something, because again, I thought this series was super epic and perfect, but I'm also ready for Star Wars stories that are a little bit more outside of this Tatooine Skywalker realm. Like I'm really excited for the Andor series because it looks like it's going to be worlds we've never been to, where it's like spies fighting the Empire, and I'm like, that sounds awesome. I'm in. And besides Cassian Andor and Mon Mothma, there doesn't look like there's too many other characters from existing IP that we'll get introduced to. It'll be new characters, which I think is exciting. So that's my thoughts on Andor. I'm excited for it. But I'd love to see Reva go off and do her own thing that has nothing to do with the Empire, and see what stories they could come up with there.
It could be interesting, Josh. It could be interesting. Maybe she finds Yoda.
That would be cool.
Or Mace Windu, or any of the characters that we mentioned in the last episode that did not make their appearance this episode.
I do want to see more Mace Windu. He's one of my favorite characters, and if he didn't die in episode 3, that would be epic, because again, we never see him die, so he's always been speculated by fans to have survived Order 66.
Oh, of course. So the Mace Windu series is concluded, or not Mace Windu, but the Obi-Wan series is concluded.
I think so.
And you don't think that they're going to do any other Obi-Wan, but if you were to do Vader, would you do it before or after?
That's a great question. I think here's my issue with that. They're going to have to walk a fine line between showing how tortured and evil Anakin has become and not glorifying him. You know what I mean? So that'd be a really hard line to walk as a writer, where people are fans of Darth Vader as a villain because he's so powerful, he's so intimidating. But like, if it was a series centric on him, I feel like they'd have to focus more on Anakin's suffering and his regrets, and how he's constantly grappling with, I've gone to the dark side, but I know deep down that this is wrong, because there is still good in him. So I feel like it would have to be I would like it to be a very in-depth character study.
I guess it would be a bit of a tightrope, because you would have to, and they would probably do something following this show, would be my guess, and maybe show some type of, I don't know, maybe they show him go even more evil and he's just beating up other bad guys. Maybe he's almost like an anti-hero where he's just killing other bad guys, killing other good. I mean, he's certainly gonna be killing a lot, but you're right from the standpoint that they can't fully make him an anti-hero and make him they can't make him overly redeemable leading up to the films, because then it lessens the arc going into those other films.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. So from a writing standpoint, it would be a very difficult series to pull off, and so I hope they attempt it.
The series before would actually be easier.
Leading up to this,
the prequel leading up to this, because then it can just be sheer evil, sheer destruction. And but I don't think that's as interesting, because that's really a small part of what he was. We saw everything that we need to see in episode 3, where he's just crushing people on the way to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I think hang on, sorry, my computer was trying to update. I said, no, not right now. We're talking about Star Wars. This is
very good. Important. Very good. You use the Force on that computer, Josh.
It's trying to update, but no, I think, like you said perfectly, it would be simpler if they did it leading up to this show, but it would undercut a lot of the value and a lot of the possible like character development if they did it before this. Whereas if they did it between the Obi-Wan Kenobi show and episode 4, they could explore a little bit of Vader's possible redeemability without undercutting the arc overall. But it is a tightrope, like you said. It'd be a hard series to write, which is why I've heard the rumors about it, and I've heard that Hayden Christensen wants to come back as Darth Vader, which is awesome. But I would be surprised if they did it, because it is difficult, you know.
Well, and I don't know what you gain from it. I don't know
Exactly.
what you gain, because it'll just become this weird. The risk is that it just becomes this weird Ben Solo, Kylo Ren type thing, where it's, is he bad? Is he good? But you can't like Vader. You can't, if you make the audience like Vader, you've done yourself a disservice.
I agree completely.
You need to enjoy his fighting style and all this other stuff, but he needs to still be menacing and still be a villain moving into and that's I don't know how you would write that.
I mean, me and you could do it and it'd be fucking awesome, but
we could do it. It would take some real thought though, because you don't want it to become worst case scenario, it becomes like Loki, where you have an introspective villain that becomes an anti-hero. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Which for Loki, that was perfect. That's exactly what his arc needed. But for Vader, you can't go that direction.
Right. And it's constraining as a writer, because you've already got the end points of his story and the start points. So if you're just really trying to flesh out that little middle section a little bit more, like, it's doable, but it's hard, you know, and to do so in a meaningful, impactful way would be difficult, I think.
Yeah. Because you don't really want to focus on the sorrow and the sadness, because it'll just be a I don't know what emotion. I don't know what emotion you would want to reveal.
Yeah.
That would be the question, is what shade of Vader have we not seen? We've seen the rage, we've seen the like bloodlust, revenge.
Yes.
We've seen the flip side with Anakin, when he's a boy and he's happy and, you know, somewhat anxious, and then we see the end where there's just that last glimmer of hope. And so I don't know, I think that there's a real risk to ruin the arc. They probably don't want to tamper with it. It's
I wouldn't. Yeah. No, I think it's pretty, because like from what I know about like canon and like other stories of Vader that are like written in comics and books that take place around this time, it's mainly focusing on other like secondary characters, and then Vader's just this menacing force, like of unstoppable nature, that interacts with them and does things, but he's not the central focal point of it. Because like we've established, his arc's already pretty set. Like, we know who he is, we know where he started and where he's going. And so yeah, as much as I love seeing Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader, I think I'd rather see a Reva show. I'm excited for the Cassian Andor show. I'd rather see more Ahsoka content, seeing how she deals with being a force sensitive fugitive, but not a Jedi after Order 66, you know, stuff like that. So,
well, Josh, so to wrap this thing up, what is your final score out of 10? Whole numbers are rookie numbers, so you're giving it a
10.
You're giving
10
it
out of 10.
You're giving it a 10.
I loved Obi-Wan. Yes, I thought it was extremely well done. There was few things I would have liked them to do differently. I thought solid 10 out of 10.
But you said that there were a few things that you'd like them to do differently.
I think there were a few moments where things got a little slow, but like I can't think of specific examples, so that tells me that it wasn't it didn't detract from my enjoyment of it at all, you know. And I tend to nitpick stuff because I'm a writer, you know. I'm like, oh, I would have done that slightly differently, but nothing that jumps to mind. So yeah, I'd say 10 out of 10. Absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna give it a 9.7.
That's high praise. I love it.
I'm gonna give it a 9.7. I thought as far as the writing goes, it was pretty tight. It was for 6 episodes. They did a lot in 6 episodes.
Yeah.
And they gave us the right type of nostalgia. And they did a nice job of making Anakin less of a bitch. because he kind of became a bit of a bitch during the last couple films where he was
debatable. I don't know.
He was just so mopey.
I think that was more of a less of an acting thing and more of a directing choice where the character like tones and kind of things they were trying to get across just didn't translate well. But I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of it was probably like I don't know. It was just kind of what was the film with Mace Windu when it was like the lead up before Mace Windu gets killed, where it's like, oh well, I should turn you in.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's just very I will say this that if Anakin was just a little bit more certain with himself, then we would also not have any issues.
Yeah.
But it was just like this angsty, like, I don't know what to do. It was very much like when he had Count Dooku in between his blades and he's just like, do it. And Anakin's just like, well, it's not really the Jedi way. Do it, Anakin. And he's just like, oh, well, I feel kind of bad. You did well, Anakin. Like, he's just, to me, he was just
I love your Palpatine impression. That's fantastic.
just a little bit mopey. Anakin was just a bit of a bitch when it came to his self-confidence. But with Vader, no confidence problems.
Nope, none there. But I think that shows that I think they were trying to really, get the message across that Anakin is not 100% evil, even though he tends towards aggression and towards violence and towards power, hunger, and stuff like that, So I think that angst was their way of reining him back a little bit,
But he could have maintained the confidence, and he's just like, if he was just like, do it, Anakin, and he's just like, nah, that's not what we do. Like, that's not what we do. Like,
and that's the end of the Star Wars.
That's just how it is. There's no
written and directed by George Lucas. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. Anakin with the moral compass.
Yes. But I think that's kind of the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker is that he grew up as a slave, and then he had a hard-headed person, Qui-Gon Jinn, who thought, you have this destiny, I'm going to train you, take you away from your mother. And he's always kind of been being told what to do. So when he finally gets enough power to do his own thing, he does the wrong thing. And that's kind of the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, And that when he finally comes into his own element, like we said, Darth Vader is confident. He's a badass, but he's lost everything he cares about, and he's evil, and he's murdering people, and he's not finding anything fulfilling to him. So it's a tragedy,
And on that note, Josh, I think that we've given our review. We've given high praise for this, a
Yes.
10 on your scale, a 9.7 on mine. And until the next thing that we review, I think we're just going to say sayonara to everybody out there in the internet.
Well, we'll talk Loki soon. Or not Loki, Thor. I want to talk Thor.
Yeah, we'll talk
Thor.
Thor.
I love Thor. So stay tuned for that, audience.
Thor 4 is the next one we'll do.
Yes. Outstanding. We'll do like a pre-lead up where we're like talking about how the characters progress so far, what we like, what we thought could have been better, just kind of our overall reviews of his adaptation. And then we can do one about the movie, and it'll be great.
There we go.
I love it.
All right, Josh.
Mike, thank you for your time. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
May the force be with you.
And also with you.
Yes.